Hey everyone, my name is Jake and today we are going to be looking at some malicious compliance stories, so sit back, relax and enjoy. Welcome to China. This happened at least 15 years ago when I did a work study in China. China was still in the process of opening up to the West at this point and had taken the first few tentative steps on her journey from communism towards raging capitalism. I worked part-time in an English school in a medium-sized city in northeast China, and took Mandarin courses in the mornings at a local university. As I was making an attempt at learning the language, I got on well with the school admin, and sometimes got interesting jobs to do, such as, in this case, being the welcome committee for the new teachers, where the school would cover the bill for a welcome to China meal. The two teachers in question were fresh off a flight from Australia, and once they dropped their bags off in the hotel we all lived in, I took them to a tea house nearby for morning refreshments and a chat. This tea house, B for time tea, was one I went to often to study. There was a door fee which let you stay for up to 24 hours, and which covered all the non-alcoholic drinks you could drink and all the snacks you could eat. Enough background, on to the malicious compliance. The Australians wanted coffee, which I ordered for us. 3 tiny paper cups of Nestle 3-in-1 arrived shortly, causing a couple of raised eyebrows. Each cup contained a small mouthful of coffee. After a long-haul overnight flight to a different continent, this wasn't going to cut it for my new jet-lagged friends, and I called the waiter back to ask if this was possible to get a couple of large mugs of coffee. Bear in mind, all the drinks etc. were covered by the door fee. This request seemed to blow the waiter's mind a little bit. After a few moments in limp mode, that he didn't know if this was possible, and disappeared to talk to his manager. I explained what was going on as we watched them discussing heatedly on the other side of the room. The waiter returned and apologized that he wasn't able to do this. I asked why not, since we could just sit here all day drinking little cups of coffee instead. He went all deer in the headlights again and went back to the manager. I updated the Australians and we watched things unfold. This time the manager came over too. I had spoken to him once or twice previously and had the distinct impression he didn't like me. Maybe on the account of me being a white guy in China. He told us pretty bluntly that we couldn't have mugs of coffee, then rudely turned and walked back to his manager booth. I could tell the Australians were about to start making a scene, but I held out a hand for a moment's patience, as I had an idea. Cue malicious compliance. I asked the waiter, who was still standing there, if he could bring a dozen little cups of coffee, and 2 empty mugs. Confronted with a request he could deal with, he immediately brightened and went off to get what I asked for. I filled in the Australians again. The waiter brought a tray covered in little paper cups of 3-in-1 and 2 empty mugs. I then proceeded to pour all the coffee into the 2 mugs, 1 shot at a time, right in front of the oblivious waiter, putting the paper cups back on his tray as they were emptied, then handed the mugs over to my 2 very bemused colleagues. This whole time, the manager glared knives at us from over the parapet of his booth across the room. Hey, I mean, if it works, it works. Dress code violation? Fine, I'll just take off more clothes. In middle school, we had a strict dress code for girls. It was a public school as well. One of the rules was that you couldn't wear an off-the-shoulder shirt. Another was that the straps on shirts had to be at least an inch thick, lest the boys go crazy for our sexy shoulders. My parents didn't care about how I dressed, but they made sure it was appropriate in every way, shape and form. By that, I mean that as long as I was modest and following the rules, I could dress myself. One day, I went to school wearing a shirt that had a wide neckline, and would often slip off to one shoulder. I was aware of this, so I wore a tank top with inch-thick straps underneath. I even color coordinated to make it all pretty. Anyway, I'm sure many of you can see where this is going. I made it through half of my day, but at lunch security came over and started yelling at me. I was in 7th grade and new to the school and did not handle disapproval well, so I started to freak out. They told me that I was in dress code violation for my off-the-shoulder shirt. Mind you, it wasn't intentional, it would just slide, and my parents would be called and I would be forced to wear my PE shirt for the rest of the day. However, as they are going on and on about the trouble I'm in, I realized that the tank top under my shirt was in full compliance. Instead of putting on more clothes to cover myself up, I simply took off the offending shirt, leaving me far more revealed. Security started to yell again and brought me to the office, but they saw no problem with the current outfit I was wearing and sent me out. Moral of the story is that school dress codes are sexist and stupid, as multiple times people have to take off clothes to be in compliance. I remember seeing like a news story of where all the boys wore skirts to school just to like protest the uniform. Waste dozens of man hours because you're smarter? Sure. I'm the foreman of a directional boring crew. If you don't know what that is, the TLDR is that you use a machine to push flexible metal rods in the ground, then hook up a pipe, say for water or electric, and pull it back the hole you just made so there is minimal disturbance to the area. Anyone in the construction industry will tell you it's just packed with people in charge who've never done anything related to the field. They tend to read the rules and go to a class and think they're an expert. We have a whole department of them, the safety office. Their job is to prepare presentations once a month to keep people from getting complacent, fight claims against us from OSHA and PSC, prepare reports for the utility company, and everyone's favorite, random audits. There are a lot of pretty strict rules in place, and for good reasons. Wear your hard hat, saved my life at least twice. No holes over 5 feet without stabilizing the walls. Treat every pipe or wire as if it might be live. This is important, etc. There are other rules that, if followed to the letter in all circumstances, are a waste of time, money, and sanity. The following is a story of one of those rules. When boring, you cannot physically see where the drill is cutting through, but it does have a transmitter that tells you all the relevant information extremely accurately. Angles, pitches, depths, location. Before you begin, you must dig to verify the location of all utilities that are to be crossed or paralleled in order to prevent destroying it. Ever seen a 12 feet high fountain of sewage? I have. My company has a rule where you must both dig to find the utility and dig deep enough to see the end of the machine passing through. This rule is in place specifically for bores that require that you have little clearance on the existing utilities. Most sane people find this rule being black and white as ridiculous, and just dig to find the utility, plus a buffer zone to know that you aren't aimed at it, and roll on, since doing it by the book does not make anything safer and only costs loads of time and physical effort. I get a random audit one day from a new safety enforcer straight from college, and everything seems peachy. I sign off and he goes on his way. The next day, I'm pulled into the office where my supervisor is waiting with a write-up from corporate. I had crossed a Verizon line that was 6 inches in the ground, where my depth was 4 feet, and hadn't instructed my crew to dig so they could see the crossing. I had broken a rule, so there was nothing I could do to fight it. The report was sent to corporate, so my supervisor couldn't fight it. 2 more and I'm gone. Cue malicious compliance. My next job was a simple gas service to a lavish house on a densely wooded hillside. Gas services needed to be done in one day to make a reasonable profit. End of day 2 and my supervisor finally noticed that I didn't even have pipe in the ground yet. I get a stern talking to about my productivity and am sent to the area manager for the next phase of discipline. We have a good chat. The next day, the new safety guy is not in a good mood. Through the grapevine, I hear that his job was threatened if he kept up frivolous strikes on audits. I mean, I had to follow the rules. Wasn't my fault that I had to dig 5 2x4x4 test pits on a 30-year-old cut cable line snaking its way just under the pine needles in my path. Oh, that must have been painful for the supervisor after 2 days and you realize they haven't done anything. Stripped in the principal's office. This did happen about 15 years ago, but I can't help snickering about it from time to time. In high school, I was a pretty mild-mannered kid. I came from a very strict household, and a call from the school was absolutely unacceptable. I also wanted approval from authority figures, as I rarely got it at home, so I kept quiet, did good work, and was generally well liked by my teachers. Like I said, it was a strict household, and my outfits were closely inspected for modesty by my very conservative parents. If it passed at home, it wasn't going to get me into trouble. I tried hard to fit in with the other kids though, and found that wearing a layer underneath made regular outfits past the home dress code. So I still got to wear the distressed jeans, but you could see black leggings instead of my knees. Not a huge deal, and it helped me feel better about my appearance, at least socially anyway. As trends were set, leggings became super popular. Finally, I was ahead and on point with my style. Some girls did begin to abuse the system though. School dress codes required skirts to be no shorter than 3 inches, or 1 index card, above the knee. Standard was suddenly lots of tiny denim miniskirts with leggings. So the school cracked down and said leggings were no longer allowed under skirts. Of course, since I had different home rules, I didn't even own a skirt that short. My skirt had to reach the knees, which was 3 inches longer than the school requirement. I didn't even mention the new school rule at home because I didn't think it was an issue. So I get super cute wearing my knee-length denim skirt and leggings, as it was still trendy and a bit chilly out. Pass home inspection and head off to school. Nothing was said in my first 3 classes, but like I said, I was a good kid and always well covered. One of the super mean teachers, not even mine, just one standing outside her door, spotted my skirt and leggings in the hall, and grabbed me and marched me down to the office. I knew of the rule change, but I truly thought it wouldn't be a big deal since I wasn't wearing a miniskirt. She shoved me in and yelled something about a dress code violation and left to return to her class. I was called in, thinking the principal, who I didn't know well, would laugh with me about her unreasonableness. Boy was I wrong. He screamed up and down how I was dressed inappropriately, and he would be calling my parents to come get me to take me home to change. Oh no. Oh no 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 no. As I stood up and turned around showing him my clothes, I tried to argue that my skirt met code and the leggings covered more. I even tried to explain that my parents would take it out on me in an aggressive manner. He wasn't going to hear any of it. I had to think fast. Cue malicious compliance. While he was still looking for the number to call, I kicked off my shoes and began wriggling the leggings down and off, right there in his office in front of him. Since my skirt was long enough, I shoved my pants into my bag and stated that now he has no reason to call my parents. I was fully compliant with the dress code of the school. As he started with his mouth agape, I could see him turning red while trying to figure out how to deal with me. He ended up just yelling, "Get out of my office! Get to class!" Never have I felt so relieved. Yeah, after 2 of those stories, it's just really confusing why they have these rules in place. So, sister, you want a baby gender reveal? You've got it. If your family and or friends have pressured you into a gender reveal that you really don't have the time or energy to pull together, try this. My wife and I cut pieces of blue and pink paper into a mason jar and then removed one blue piece so there was exactly one more piece of pink than blue. All my family had to do was simply determine which color had more pieces. We presented it to my family and sat back as we watched them sort them all. Great fun. Word of caution, the number of pieces add up fast. I used 3 8.5 by 11 pieces of pink and blue paper each, cut into roughly half-inch squares, added up to 2,244 pieces. Took 4 people about 30 minutes to get through it all. Dramatic build-up was real. Enjoy. That's actually a great idea, but imagine if one person miscounted just by 1. You gotta do it all again. Wow guys, look on screen right now. You see those 2 videos right there? They're pretty good. I think you should click at least one of them and watch another one.